Hi BookTube. I'm here today to talk about the books I read this last week. I read a bunch of lighter books, which was much needed because my week was very stressful, and so I really needed some light entertainment to help me through this week. And the first one is a really cute book, just by the cover. It's just adorable. It's The Daily Coyote, a story of love, survival, and loss and trust in the wilds of Wyoming. And it's by Shree Stockton, and there's a bunch of pictures. I'll show you some of them throughout the book. And it also has a lot of landscape photos of Wyoming, because besides being an author, she's also a photographer. So she's really able to capture. She has a bunch of pictures from when he was a puppy until he was around a year and a half or so. So this is when he's a little puppy. I'll show you one other one. It's just filled with pictures. This is when he was older, so you can kind of see the progression of, it looks like a wolf in this one. Or kind of like a fox. But yeah, this is a story about a woman who, she's lived in the cities all of her life. She grew up in Seattle, and then she was living in New York and San Francisco. And then so she went from San Francisco driving back to New York, and she passed through Wyoming, and she just fell in love with the country, the landscape. And she only spent a day in Wyoming, but when she went back to New York, she just couldn't get out of her mind. So she stayed in New York. After all that drive and plans and going back to live there, a week later, she Googles and to find a place to live, and she happens to find a rental. She moves there with no job, no friends, no contacts or anything. And so she moves to this small town with 300 people. She lives on the outskirts of that small town, and she's filled with a bunch of cowboys and ranchers and cattle more than anything. And she befriends a man who he works for the federal wildlife services. But it's weird because instead of protecting wildlife, he's mostly protecting cattle. And so his job basically is to get on planes and survey the area for any coyotes that could be harmful to the cattle. They would want to kill them and bring it back to their den and all that. And so if he finds one of a pair near the cattle, then he shoots them, and then he goes back to their den and he kills the babies, because he doesn't. It's even though it's horrible, it's better for them because at least they're not slowly dying of starvation. And so one time, and he's working there, I think it was 20 years or so at the time of this woman Shreve meeting him. And he goes to this den, and there's this one coyote sitting outside the den. And so he kills the ones inside the den, but he, for some reason, decides to save this one pup. And he said he's never, ever felt the need before to do that. He's never had that desire. But he does, and he gives it to her. And so she raises it from a puppy. The book's all about her experiences, with relocating and her love for Wyoming, and the hardship she encounters with the extreme weather, and especially the extreme cold, because she decides to live in a place that doesn't have much heat, it's not insulated. And so she's shivering. So it made me cold just reading it, even though it's really hot here. but yeah, I was just cold thinking about living in the middle of Wyoming, because it's really high elevation. But yeah, so also a little bit not confused, but conflicted, because I really like the moments where she's talking about, raising the coyote and what all he gets up to and how similar he is to a dog, and then of course the ways in which he isn't similar to a dog. So I like those moments, but the parts where she's talking about this man who, I know it's part of ranching life. You always hear these stories, with wolves and stuff being killed to protect cattle, and it's just it's hard to wrap my mind around, how she can raise a coyote, but, she's friends and with this man who kills them for a living, basically. And so, but yeah, it was a really cute book, filled with tons of pictures, like I said. So yeah, there was that one. And then the next book I read, it's Wyoming, and then I moved to Montana with reading this book. Oh, not Montana, sorry, Alaska. I read a book, the week before in Montana. This is Open Carry by Mark Cameron, and this is book 1 in the Arliss Cutter series. And this was my first book by this author. I've seen him his books around, but I just never picked him up. And this is about a man who has recently moved to Alaska from Florida, and he's very experienced in the military, in the armed forces, and it's like a rough guy. He's kind of gruff, and he doesn't really he's not very like smiley or outgoing. And it's about him investigating murders that are happening in this like small area of Alaska, like hours and hours away from where he's at. And yeah, I liked it. It was okay. It just it was kind of slow pacing because the author really, like, when he's introducing a character, he really goes into depth, and like you move from the main character's perspective, and then when he introduces a character, you get into their perspective for like a chapter or so. And so I feel like kind of like bogged down the story a bit because every single character got its own like perspective, which I don't mind, but it's just for it to be like a mystery, a thriller, like action paced. It really slowed it down for me. But yeah, it was okay. It wasn't the worst thing I've ever read, for sure. It was more like, I guess if I was doing a star rating, it would be like a 3-star for me. Like just so. But I might pick up something in the future if like the description, sounds good, the story sounds good. I'll give it a shot. Let's see. This next one is I read for the romance book bingo. It's Susan Mallory, When We Found Home, with this really pretty lake cover. And this is about this is a Malcolm, Callie, and Kira series. This is book number 1, and it's about these 3 siblings who they all share the same father, but they have different mothers. And it's about this basically this man. They travel a lot, and so each of the siblings are from different areas. They're of different backgrounds and different ages. And so Malcolm is the son, and he had the closest relationship to the father. And he's very wealthy. He lives in Seattle, and then I think he's around 30, and then he finds out that he has a sister, Callie, who is like, I think she's around 25 or 26. And she is from a very rough background. She had a very hard upbringing, and she was actually arrested because and went to jail because in high school she made a stupid decision. She was with a group of friends, and they decided to break in and to a store, and so she got arrested for that. And so she's constantly, like, throughout the rest of her life, she's 25 now. She's out of jail, and she's trying to do better, like have an actual career and a life now after her stupid mistake. And so when she meets Malcolm, he has a rich, wealthy upbringing, and he wants to put her into his company as like one of those executive positions, like a top position. She's like, no, I don't want to do that. I know nothing about that. I don't want to be treated unfairly compared to the rest of the employees. And so she actually works in a like in the bottom, like in a factory area, like on the what's it called, assembly line. I'm like, the circly thing, the assembly line, yes. And then the youngest, Kira, she grew up in foster care, and so she has a hard time with, but she's really sassy. She was my favorite character of all 3 of the siblings. She was just so sassy, and like she brought a lot of fun and light to the book. And even though like it sounds like a family drama, there is some romance with each. Not each. Kira's the younger. She's 12 or 13. But so Malcolm and Callie, they're the 2 that have their own like romance story, which was nice. But yeah, I like how it's like a balanced romance where you got a lot in there with a family drama, romance, and like yeah, it was a really nice story. This is my first Susan Mallory, actually, and so I really liked it, and I will for sure be picking up more by her. See, the next one is another romance. It's by Robin Carr. It's What We Find, and I love this color, this blue that's on this like barn door. It's really nice. And this is the first book in the Sullivan Crossing series, and it's for about a neurosurgeon named Maggie Sullivan, and let's see, and this is about, she lives in Colorado. This is another when I was thinking about like the one in Wyoming. This one is, she lives in Colorado, and it's all about her really trying to go back to her roots, because she grew up on this like a campground area. Her father, Sully, is the campground manager, and he owns his little store, but his wife hates it. She wants to live in the city. She wants her daughter to be educated, and so she takes Maggie and brings her to Chicago. But Maggie is really resentful of this, because she she wants to actually become a neurosurgeon, and so it's like this conflict of, would she have become this if she had stayed in this like small campground area, but she still loves it. And so it's about her like coming to terms with like, where what's the right location for her. Is it Chicago? She's actually in Denver now, and so is it in Denver, it's big city in Colorado, or this like small mountain town? And so yeah, and then she, of course, it's a romance book, so she also has a romance story of sorts. And yeah, I really liked it. This one, I went to the bookstore and I picked a couple more books up by her, because I really like this story. It made me want to go camping in the Rocky Mountains, which I've never camped in the Rocky Mountains. I've driven through it, but I'm kind of scared of grizzly bears. They're nothing to laugh at, or they're serious business. But yeah, this one was nice. And then the next two were physical books. I read Binti, which is a really short novella by Nadia Okorafor, and this won the Hugo and Nebula Award. And this is all about, she's from a tribe that never, like, she gets accepted to this like elite university, and no one else in her tribe has gone there. She decides to go because the people they're called, I think they're called Kush or something. I can't remember the name of their Crush, or it was like some like weird name. But these people that go to this university are like against her tribe. They're not of her people, and so she really feels like an outsider. But it's all about the story. Really, is her adventure on this spacecraft where she boards the ship with all of these people from a different tribe, and they go to the university. And so I have it's a trilogy, and so it's a really short book. So it just got to the part where she landed at the university. So I'm assuming the next one's going to be her experience at the university. And for what it was, it's 90 pages. It was like really big font, and so it felt like maybe 45 or 50 pages. So I flew by it. It's really hard to. It's not really a book. It's a novella. So it didn't have as much of a story as I was hoping, because it was blinking and you're done with the story. But I am intrigued to see what's the future for this book. What's the future for this character? What's going to happen? It's really interesting. Like this picture, this like orange clay is very important to her tribe, and it actually plays a really important part in the story. It's like this oil and like soil from her native land that she kind of uses as like a healing implement and as part of like reminding herself of where she's from. But yeah, this it was good. And this last one was a delight. It's That Quail, Robert, by Margaret A. Stenger. And this is about a Cape Cod, a retired couple, and they adopt a quail because in their backyard there's a family of quail, and they don't want to disturb the nest. They wait for the family to leave, and then they go and investigate the nest just to look at it. And there's 2 eggs there. One is broken, and one is whole, but it's not hatched. And so they just like put it on their kitchen counter and like to study later. And because it's not incubated, nothing, like the mother quail has left, and but it hatches like the next day. And so but quail, if they have any human contact, they're like disowned from the other quail. And so so they just like they accidentally adopt a quail, and it was a lovely story. The quail, like, I think I'll show you some pictures. It was just like it's sitting on like the table center, and these like flowers. If you can see, it's right here. If the camera will pick it up, a bunch of illustrations. So it was tiny little thing. It weighed 5 ounces. They actually weighed it. Let's see if there's any more pictures I can show you. And this is one where it's like it's staring at at Jesus in the manger for like a Christmas scene. It's right there, like looking at the baby in the manger. But yeah, it was a really nice story. I learned a lot about quails. I didn't know anything. Like I didn't even know what they look like. But I had like a vague idea in my mind. But they're mostly like land birds. They don't nest up high. Yeah, he's like, I guess they're really like shy creatures, but Robert was the opposite of that. They were surprised how friendly he was, she was, actually turns out to be a girl, spoiler. Except they didn't want to switch to Robert after like a year of saying Robert, And so Roberta just didn't feel right, so they called it Robert. And it had a huge fan base. Like they were getting this is like before the internet. This is it was in the 1960s, and so they were getting all these letters. People were stopping by to go to see him, and yeah, it was just a delightful book. And here's another picture on the back of the quail. See, it's a little tiny little bird, but yes, it was just a nice book to read. So yeah, these are all the books I read this week. I'm hoping next week will have in store for me some other light, fun reads, because I need that. And summer's the time, really, for, like, light reads, nothing, like, too serious. I do like my serious books, don't get me wrong, but for the moment, I need some, like, lighthearted books. So, yeah, thanks. I'll see you soon.